Welcome back to Conqueror's Blade, all you returning heroes. Whether you've been out of the game for a couple months, a couple seasons, or a couple years now, this guide is going to be for you. I'm going to be going over all the new systems and the meta-relevant units and weapons, as well as generally just what's changing with the game. I've added chapters below if you want to skip around if you're already familiar with some of these systems, so feel free to do that. But for those not aware, one big thing that's changing already is MY.GAMES will no longer be the publisher come June with the new season. That will now be Booming, who was the one maintaining the Frontier servers. So we're essentially just going to be on the same game that Frontier has been on. What that means is hopefully better servers, as well as certain doctrines like leadership reduction doctrines. That means the meta is likely to change a little bit, so we'll have to see how all that plays out. One thing to be aware of as well, once you're in game, click this F8 button at the top right up here. That will take you to the account transfer process. You'll definitely want to do this before Season 20 starts, so you're ready to go, especially if you use the MY.GAMES launcher. If you're on Steam, you should be good to go, but you might just want to click it anyways just to double check. With that being said, let's go ahead and get into things. So first I'll be going over your daily and weekly quests that you'll want to do to maximize your unit XP and overall rewards. I'm just going to be hitting the highlights here. This is just what I focus on to get the most rewards without grinding too hard. So first up we'll have the daily rewards. You can see these by hitting L. And really the two daily quests you want to knock out is playing one game and getting one victory. You'll want to do these because you'll get these supply tokens. You'll also get these from the weekly quest rewards. What these can be used for is if you look at the supply token exchange. I use these mainly for the mastery scrolls, but you can get unit medals, doctrines, and crafting materials, all sorts of stuff here. So you're definitely going to want to be getting the supply tokens. As far as your weekly quests go, I would aim for at least the purple supply pack. It's pretty trivial to get the first two rewards if you're just playing the game regularly. You can get the first one literally from playing 20 minutes and just doing the bandit raids. And just playing a little bit more and doing territory war can get you pretty comfortably to purple every week without feeling like you're grinding a lot. So a lot of these you just get by playing, just killing heroes, killing units, doing your artillery challenges, as well as the territory war participation gives you 20 points, so that's one of the biggest ones. So definitely try to join a territory war at least once a week if at all possible. These supply packs give you pretty good rewards. They give you a lot of those supply tokens as well as other things like bronze and vault keys, so you're definitely going to want to do these. As far as your weeklies go, the biggest thing you're going to want to knock out is your 5 bandit raids. This shouldn't take you too long. It's about 20 minutes, resets every Monday. And make sure when you do these, you're going to want to pop your biggest unit XP reward cards. Bring one of your units that you want to level, as well as a cav unit to quickly run down the enemies. You want to aim for at least 160 unit kills in these. Just do 5 of those. You'll get you can get around like 200k XP a game, so usually you can level up a unit about 3 times if you're on the upper end of the XP track. So for the 300k XP to level, you can usually get about 3 levels a week just from doing that. And yeah, that's really what you want to focus on for your dailies and weeklies. So one of the new major systems to be aware of is the tier lock system. So what that means is now in each season you're going to have this campaign progression. So in the first couple weeks, you're only going to be able to use blue tier units and no one's going to have their armor set bonuses. That means it's a good time for new players to get in, as you'll be on more of a level playing field versus experienced players who already have really good armor sets. The second few weeks is the purple tier lock, so you can use up to purple tier units and you still will not have access to your crafted equipment bonuses, so people aren't going to have extra leadership and things like that. And then finally, you'll be in your normal golden era where you can use all armor, you have all your bonuses, and all your units. So blue tier lock, purple tier lock, and then golden era lock. I personally find blue tier lock to be really fun. Some things to know going into blue tier lock, if you're a returning player, is you're going to want the Brigand armor set, Sentinel armor set, or House Trooper armor set respectively. That's because these are the only sets that will actually have leadership bonuses, because your crafted armor bonuses aren't going to apply in those 2 campaigns. So this is a good set for returning players to start off with. You get these by going to the Fame Envoy in any major city here. So you'll get Fame turn-ins just from playing normally. You can turn those into the Fame Envoy. Then at the same Fame Envoy, go to the Fame store, and you'll see one of the unlocks is one of those armor sets. So if you don't have good armor from the past, go ahead and go to the Fame Envoy, pick up those sets, and use those in the first few weeks of the campaign. Those are going to be the sets that most people use anyways. So that's how the new campaign and tier lock works. So one of the other new systems to be aware of, if you haven't seen this already, is the seasonal runes. So the way this works is as your hero levels up, and you can see this by the way by hitting F5 and then going to seasonal runes, And the way this works is as your hero levels up, you're going to unlock these runes, and runes are essentially boost or modifiers to a certain weapon and certain armor type. And the way you can actually equip these is you hit P and go to your character interface here and hit apply rune, and then you can go through all of your weapons and armor and apply your runes here. So for example, if I just click this and I deselect this one and select this one, I'm going to now use this rune, and you can combo these with other runes for certain types of builds. I find I don't change runes too often. I usually just like to take the ones that are based around your teamwork, which you get a little bit later. So for example, reduces damage taken by 3% overall after death. Nearby allies will take 10% less damage for 10 seconds. I just like to take those ones for the most part, and then just fill in the other ones depending on my particular class that I'm playing. One that you're definitely going to want, just to call this one out, is the bandage can be used while moving. You'll put this on your boots. It'll reduce the cooldown and you can use it while you're moving. This is pretty much a must-have so that you can run away while healing. Super useful. You're almost definitely going to want to take that one. I think that's the only major one to call out. The rest just kind of depends on your playstyle and what you want to equip there. But that's how the new rune system works. You'll have to unlock these each season currently, so everyone's going to have to unlock these at the start of the season. So if you want to get up to speed and be ready to fight in territory wars on an even playing field, then you're definitely going to want to start playing right at the beginning of the season as soon as it opens and get those runes before other people have a chance to. So now on to the hero armor and the Artificer's Forge system. So the main thing you need to know about armor that's different is you can now roll leadership bonus on your armor. So if I go to my hero here, you can see most of my pieces have around 18 leadership. You would generally want to go for around 20 to 25. I believe 25 is the max. So you can get 25 per piece for a total of 100 extra leadership. Most of mine are around 18. If you get a roll about 20 or higher, that's pretty good. So it's going to be harder for you to get past that. So I'd say to start out with, just try to go for at least 20 leadership and then go from there. So the way you can re-roll your gear here, the most optimal way to do this is you're going to want to craft a bunch of armor until you get a good leadership roll. So if I go here, I want to try to get my rogue's bracers better. I only have 15 leadership on those. So I'm going to go ahead and craft these. I have 35 rare armor schematics to do this. If you don't have a lot of these, you might just want to reforge your gear if you're not going to be able to roll this too many times. But let's go ahead and do this, and I'm just going to hope that I get a really good leadership roll on these. And let's see, I got a nice purple roll, but no leadership, no health. These are pretty bad. Let's try this one more time. Okay, still not what I wanted. But let's say I did roll something good here, and now I have the leadership I want. So now I'll go over to the armor and go to the Artificer's Forge. So you can reforge gear to boost it. You're going to want to reforge all your gear at least once, because reforged gear is generally just going to be better than your base gear. So if you have old legendary gear, make sure to still reforge it. It's generally going to be better than your old gear, even if it's a legendary gear. It obviously just depends on the stats you rolled, but generally reforged gear is going to be a lot higher stats. So let's say I'm happy with this reforged rogue bracer stat. I'm just going to try to reroll it from here now. So you'll need these Artificer Stones, which you can see how to obtain these on the popover. So you get them from Weekly Crestwords, Battle Pass, Fame Envoy, and other things. So, and then you can lock a stat here. So let's say I'm happy with this leadership stat of 15. I can click this here, so that will lock it. So now when I reforge it, it's going to keep this stat. You can only lock one stat at a time. So I'm going to make sure I always keep this 15 leadership, and then I'm going to try to roll for my other stats. So now I want to try to roll for higher health. Maybe I want 1,000 health instead of 500 for heavy armor, or I want my slashing armor pen higher if I'm a light armor class to do more damage. So then I would just click that. I'm not going to lock this because I want a higher leadership roll, so I'm just going to do this. So then I'll reforge it. And let's see what I rolled. So I didn't get the leadership I wanted, so I'm just going to choose this. This is my old gear. Just not going to keep the new gear. One thing to keep in mind as you do this, this is going to unapply your runes if you're reforging a piece that you currently have equipped. So make sure if you do this, always go to apply rune here and put your runes back on so that you're not going to be missing those when you go back into battle. It's especially annoying if you take your boots off, you'll miss the bandage while moving one, which can catch you off guard. So make sure you reapply those and try to go for 20 to 25 leadership rolls on all your gear, and then re-roll those for whatever other stats you want boosted. Yeah, that's the main thing you need to know about the Armor and Artificer's Forge system. One more thing I did forget to mention, if you're low on the crafting mats, such as powdered silver, make sure to go to the Apothecary Weekly. she will stock up on these rivets, powdered silver, steel ingots, rolls of leather, and just buy all those out for bronze. You should probably have plenty of bronze to do that, so make sure you buy those out weekly if you're low on crafting mats. After you play enough, you're probably just gonna have a ton of that. Like I'm at 400, 500 powdered silver now and like 2,000 rivets, so don't even need these anymore. But make sure if you are low on those to stock up weekly so that you don't have to waste your daily supply token rewards on those. Next up we have the Doctrines and Doctrinal Alchemy system. You can get to this interface by clicking X. That will bring up the War Scholar interface, and here you'll see there's various places where you can redeem your treatises, which you get from various quest rewards. So for example, down here we have the Epic Lance Doctrine. You have a chance at getting that, which is good for Hussars. This one has the ranged focus, so you can get this Epic Crossbow Doctrine, which is good for Rattans. This one is based on Spear, Tower Shields, and then this is a rotating one. Right now it's Epic Sword Doctrine, which unlocks Ironsides. That one is good for your Buckler units, so you'll definitely want to get that one. And the way to optimize this, if you weren't already aware, you'll want to take your treatises and go one by one to excavate these. You're guaranteed a purple after at least 10. So you'll want to keep excavating one by one until you get a purple. Then you can do a mass excavation to guarantee another purple, and then back to the one by one. Then onto the Doctrinal Alchemy. Here you'll combine various doctrines into higher level doctrines. So I can right click on these to add them here, for example. So I'll just add these in. Now if I begin this process, it'll take a second and then it'll reward me with the higher level doctrine, or in this case, this purple Doctrinal Spirit, this Epic Wisdom here. And what these can do, you'll combine these 8 Epic Wisdoms here, and when you're doing the full purples, if you have a Pure Wisdom, that's the time to use that. You'll basically guarantee yourself a Tier 4 or Tier 5 Doctrine if you're using a Pure Wisdom with all these 8 purple Epic Wisdoms here. Once this bar right here fills up, it'll guarantee a purple Tier 5 Doctrine, so you don't need to use a Pure Wisdom for that. I just throw in like 8 of those green Wisdoms here, and it'll still guarantee a purple Tier 5, so don't waste any good Doctrines once you fill this bar up. And yeah, so this is how you get the higher level purple Doctrines, which you're definitely going to want for various units. There's a lot of good Doctrines that you're going to want to get eventually, so just start combining these, get those higher level ones, and put them on your favorite units. Now onto the Mastery system. This system was implemented to offset the power creep of the seasonal units by making the normal honor tree units stronger just through an additional leveling system. So if we go to the barracks here, I'll give an example. You can check this box to only show units with Mastery. So I'll look at Palace Guards as an example. If I click on them, go to Unit Mastery here, you'll see that there's various upgrades you can get through the Mastery unlocks, and that will buff your units by a certain amount with different abilities as well. So a few honorable mentions for good Mastery units while I'm here. Men-at-Arms are very meta right now. Obviously your ISG and IPG are always going to be good. Palace Guards are decent, especially because they're good against Wu-Weis right now, which are very meta. Halb Sergeants are kind of mediocre, but they're okay if you have no other anti-cav option. Imperial Javelineers are good. If you want a ranged option, Rattans are really, really good. Kriegsrats and Imperial Archers are decent, but nothing to write home about. As far as cav goes, I've heard Prefecture Heavy Cav got a new mastery, and they're pretty good now, but I haven't got a chance to try them out. For your blue lock units, the Halb Sergeants, the Elite Halberdiers are very good. Ironcap Spearmen are pretty good, they got a recent buff. Prefecture Guards are good, just standard buckler unit. And then for green tier units, the Ironcap Scouts are still pretty decent, even though they did get nerfed. And then I've heard the Demesne Spearmen are pretty good, although I haven't used them myself. So how can you get these mastery points? So if you go, there's a couple different ways of getting them. So I'll go to our reward screen here. One way you can get them is from the supply token exchange. So if you hit O and then go to activities, or you can also just click on your supply tokens from your inventory, you can go to this screen. So you can get up to 50 green scrolls of mastery per week by exchanging these supply tokens. So I would max those out every week if you're trying to get your units to mastery as soon as possible. The other way of getting these is if you hit U, go into your barracks, go to the unit tree here, and then at the top right you'll see there's the honor store. So click that, and then you can unlock the uncommon scrolls of mastery as well as these rare scrolls of mastery by paying honor for them. Go ahead and get the ones that are discounted first to optimize this, and then go all greens before you go blues. It's a little bit cheaper to exchange blues from greens using the honor unlocks than it is to just straight up buy the blues. So just max out your greens and then go blues if you're hurting for honor and you're not going to be able to buy all of them for that week. But yeah, I think that's all you need to know about the mastery system. Now on to the unit tier list. I'm obviously not going to go through all these. There's a lot of units here. And this is also not an exhaustive list, but I tried to put all the gold era, purple era, and the meta relevant blue and green era units here. So most of the units are here, but there's definitely some that aren't here, and they're probably not even worth mentioning at this point. So I'm just going to hit up the highlights here. So first up, we have the new cav, the Huanuia Heavy Cav. Definitely the best unit in the game currently. They have a really good charge, and their 2 ability makes them go immune, and it just gives them insane damage potential against both heroes especially, I would say, and also units. So just a really good cav overall. These guys are pretty certain to get a nerf, I would imagine, next season. In light of them being so strong, they also buffed the Modals. So I've noticed recently, as of the time of this recording, Modals actually got really strong, so they're definitely a very good unit to bring. They're already a pretty good anti-cav option, but I would say now they're really, really strong, and also better at killing other units as well. Other cav units to mention, Winged Hussar is always just a solid unit. It's always been really good, still really good, so definitely worth picking up if you don't have Golden Era cav yet. Yanyudao's another really good cav unit, really good at kind of coming around corners, flanking enemies, and just wiping out entire blobs of enemy units and heroes. Flamers, the Siphonari, really good in territory wars and sieges, is one of the few units that can counter enemy blobs and just eats blobs up and stuns all the units with its flaming ability. Queen Knights are really good because they directly counter the meta unit Man-at-Arms, and just really good at just dueling enemy units as well. Then we have Orochi Samurai. With their 1 ability, they can actually take out cav, and they can just wipe out blobs with that ability as well, and really good at killing heroes if they get caught in that ability. So just overall a really solid unit. The other new unit was the Wu Wei Mansion Guard. Just overall really strong unit, really good AoE clearing abilities on units, and their 1 ability gives them this kind of like stun ability against units and heroes, which is super annoying, and they're very fast as well. Overall, just really strong unit, probably also going to get nerfed as we see in most seasons with the new units, so expect these guys to probably get nerfed and move down to A tier, but we'll see. These guys do get countered by Palace Guards, I should mention, so that's a notable counter there. Then we have the Mastery Imperial Pike Guards and Imperial Spear Guards, IPG, ISG. Typical units, we've seen these forever. They're probably always going to be really solid units. IPG's obviously for their walk, and ISG's for their big shield. So always going to be an S tier unit there. Then we have the blue tier era units that land in S tier. Rattan Marksman is really the main one you'll see for its mass debuff, but also just its poison stacking can give you insane damage. You won't see them as much in Territory Wars because if they're bringing shield, that's going to block it, but in Sieges they're definitely pretty viable, definitely a great unit. Zicalian Militia for the same reasons as the Flamers, really good flame damage, stuns enemy units, and just does true damage through heavy armor, so just a really strong unit. Alchemist, I would actually put here, I think this is a super underrated and underused unit currently. I've actually used these in multiple siege matches and just won them at the final point by just healing our whole blob, and they just weren't able to kill all of our units. I'm kind of surprised I don't see these more. They got buffed recently, and they now heal, I think that's 10% of max HP. So I feel like these guys are actually really strong now, so we'll see if more people start using them soon. Next up to the A tier, we have the Falconetti Gunners. I put these first because they're probably even an S tier in a lot of situations just because they fulfill such a niche role. You know, obviously they're the only unit in the game that can take out enemy siege and artillery, and they can take out enemy blobs, one of the few units that can fulfill the role of stopping big enemy blob pushes. So any unit that fulfills that role is high tier in my book because that's such an important role to fulfill, and most games you'll lose, it's just because there's a big enemy blob that you just can't stop. So very strong in those situations where you can post them up in some gateway or something like that where they can't really get to them, and you can just mow down a whole line of enemy troops with these big cannonballs. Liaos are up here, kind of the same reason as the new cav. People will just call the new cav the new Liaos pretty much. Still really solid cav in my book, although they don't see much play right now because the new cav is just way better. Then we have Iron Reapers, obviously just all-around good unit, has been for a long time. Just solid damage, very tanky, just best ladder climbing unit in Territory Wars, all that kind of thing. Just overall a really strong unit. Then we have the Shinjis, which is really good, again, similar to the Falconettis because of their enemy blob countering potential. With their grenade throws, you can just wipe out a ton of units in one throw, and then afterwards they also have really fast musket fire, which can kill enemy heroes pretty quickly as well, which is nice. Then we have Zweihanders. They can hold down an area pretty well, really good damage potential, kind of tanky, and can heal as well. So just overall, really solid unit. Then the Camel Lancers, which is basically the only mobile anti-cav in the game. You'll see these quite a bit, I would say, in Territory Wars and high-level sieges, just because of the unique niche they fill. No other unit in the game is as mobile as they are and can stop enemy cav as well as they can. So really solid unit, and always good to have a couple of these around when facing a big blob of enemy cav. Then we have the Imperial Javelineers. These are definitely better than they used to be with their new mastery system. Their javelins do a lot of damage, and they have better melee potential now as well, and they're pretty tanky as well to boot. Then we have the cav from the last season, the Kriegsbruters. They're the only cav in the game that has the shield that can block ability, and they can also heal, so probably the tankiest cav in the game, and they're a melee cav, really fast. With the right doctrines, these things are a nightmare to deal with. Also, aside from the new cav, definitely the best cav to bring for bandit raids, so even if you don't want to use these in sieges, they're probably worth getting at least for running bandit raids. Then we have Onimushu, very squishy unit, but deals a ton of damage and can heal off their attacks. So in the right situations, if you position yourself and flank an enemy, they're just great at killing enemy units and heroes. Myrmidons, especially in purple tier luck, these are a really good pushing unit. They're one ability that allows them to charge in, does a ton of damage, so a really good unit to have around to facilitate pushes. Then, of course, we have Mastery Men-at-Arms, which is basically the meta tier unit right now. Pretty much everyone's running them every game because low leadership, and it's just overall solid unit. Pretty tanky with iron sides, amazing at killing heroes with their charge ability that goes on cooldown for Mastery. So you're going to see these a ton. I would say I wouldn't say they're shifting out of the meta, but I have noticed a lot more people bring Wu Weis and Queen's Knights to counter these in high-level sieges. So not sure if these will rotate out of the meta, but I have personally noticed I don't like bringing these as much because of the Wu Weis. They just pretty much completely eat up men-at-arms a lot of the times. And I'll give an honorable mention to the blue tier era units in A tier. These are mostly only going to be relevant for the blue tier lock, but Outriders, Halberdiers, all around solid units. Janissaries I think are a little underrated. They have really good accuracy and damage versus heroes, which not a lot of people expect. Ironcap Spearmen recently got buffed, so their health is actually pretty decent now and serve as the best tanky shield unit in blue tier lock. Prefecture Guards just all around solid buckler unit. And Sons of Fenrir do really solid damage, great at killing heroes and slicing up units as well. Nagadana Monks, if you have these, can afford them, they're good at killing heroes as well. Ironcap Scout Cav were actually the one green tier unit to go to S tier temporarily, even in Golden Era, which was actually insane. They had this mini stun on their charge, and they also did insane hero damage. They would just wipe the floor with enemy heroes and even take out enemy golden cav, and were only 90 leadership. So for a while, you would see these in pretty much every siege game at a high level, and they just sally out at pretty much every game. They got nerfed multiple times for their mini stun as well as their leadership cost. So they're definitely down to A tier now. You'll still see them now and again, but they're nowhere near as good as they used to be. So that's all for the S and A tier units. I'm not going to go one by one through the rest of these because I think most of them don't even need to be mentioned individually because they're just not worth bringing a lot of the time. Some of them do have niche use cases, so I'll give a few honorable mentions here. I would say Dagger Axe Lancers, especially in the purple tier lock, are really solid. Their cover commander ability can be pretty insane in the right situation, so you're definitely going to see those in the purple tier lock. Also, the Prefecture Heavy Cav, I have heard with the new mastery, is really good. So if people are able to get that mastered in time, you'll probably see some of those as well. Some other units here, you have Palace Guards. Those are notable right now just in their ability to kind of counter the Wu Weis. So those actually, just for their counter, may be an A tier temporarily until Wu Weis get nerfed. Then Imperial Archers and Kriegsrats, those both recently got masteries. Imperial Archers are really good at killing enemy heroes with their volley ability, but it is still kind of hard to use and it doesn't always exactly kill the enemy heroes, so they have to kind of be standing still, which is kind of the only reason I didn't put them up to A tier. But in the right situations, you can pick off a few enemy heroes, which is nice. They're still kind of mediocre at killing enemy units, so not amazing. Then we have the Kriegsrats. These are actually really good for a while. I would say A tier for a little bit. They did get a recent nerf to their health, and they're short on ammo, so those two things kind of moved them down to B tier in my book, but I do still like bringing them a lot. They're a really solid musket unit, probably the best budget musket unit you can bring currently. Then we have Fortebracios. These will likely get nerfed with the new cav being so OP. They actually did just get a recent nerf to their damage. The main thing holding these back is just their turning thing right now. So they'll auto-turn, but their auto-turn is really slow. So if like a hero flanks around them, they just like turn around and cav can charge them from the front, which is kind of annoying. I'm hoping at some point they'll give us the ability to just not let them turn, which would definitely move these up to at least A or S tier so they can counter enemy cav again like they used to. Then Halberdier Sergeants. These guys are just pretty solid, but not amazing in any respects. And Samaki and Stalwarts can be very tanky, but they're not amazing. Nomcons are good in territory wars for their bleed to stop enemy heroes from kicking down enemy ladders, and Longbows are good in the right situations for picking off other enemy ranged units from really far away. And of course Bagpipers if you want to have some fun and buff your whole team. That can be kind of fun as well. But yeah, I think that will be it for the honorable mentions for the units, so that will wrap up the unit tier list here. So now on to the weapons tier list, and first up we have Maul, the best unit killing hero in the game and the bane of a lot of players' existence. It's been one of the best heroes in the game for a long time now, since around Season 3 I believe. Great at killing enemy blobs, great at killing shield units, really the only hero that can even take on a lot of heavy shield units with its blunt damage. Pretty good at dueling and very tanky as well, just all around really solid class. Then we have Shortsword, probably the tankiest hero class in the game. Really good at dueling, heroes just being annoying generally in duels. Damage is average, I would say, not great, but not terrible either. Pretty good at stopping cav charges with its ultimate, and good at sitting on supply points, not letting people get units out, and just generally being annoying in the backline, taking out artillery, dueling enemy heroes, and just being super tanky and pretty much not dying. If you play this class right, you're pretty much invincible, so just really strong class overall. Then we have Poleaxe, which I would say is in a similar state as to where it was many years ago now. Still really strong because of its CC capabilities. I would say it's even stronger now because of its epic hero schematic set, which makes you immune to CC during your ultimate. But aside from that, it's pretty much the same as it's always been, just a little bit stronger, I would say. Very tanky class, pretty decent at unit killing, good at hero killing because of its CC capabilities, and just a great support class to have as well. Then we have Chaindart and Scimitar, which I would say is the best hero killing class in the game currently, mainly because of its ability to dismount an enemy hero off of their horse and then immediately CC them. This will catch a lot of enemy heroes off guard, and it's very useful in territory wars as well to secure your backlines, prevent enemies from killing your artillery or stalling your supply, things like that, when you pair yourself with a unit like Men-at-Arms or Wuweis, which are other great hero killing units. So I would say the main reason it's an S tier is its viability in territory wars to secure your backlines, but it can also be pretty good in normal sieges as well if you can fight on the flanks and take down enemy heroes all game. So overall, really solid class, probably the best class in the game currently for securing enemy hero kills. Then down to A tier, we have Dual Blades, which I could say in the right hands this class could move up to the S tier. It's similar to Chaindart in its ability to kill enemy heroes, but I would put this a little bit lower because it can't dismount the heroes off their horses like Chaindart can from a distance, and you have to close that distance a little bit more to be able to stun lock them and do a lot of damage to them. Their ability to escape, I would say, is a little bit better than Chaindart because they have that invisibility, and they also have that one skill where you throw the knives into enemy blobs and you can actually harass enemy blobs and do a bit of damage there as well, which is nice because Chaindart does not have that ability. So they're pretty similar in their function, I would say, just pick whatever you like, but I rated Dual Blades a little bit lower because of those reasons, but still a really solid hero killing class. Next up in the A tier, we have the Longsword, which next to Shortsword is the tankiest hero class in the game. It also has solid support capabilities with its heal and speed up for your allied units and heroes. Outside of that, its ability to duel and kill enemy units is pretty mediocre unless you get a god roll on your weapon, which even then it's still probably just going to be average damage at best. Outside of that, you also have your ultimate to stop enemy cab charges and just generally be annoying in the backlines with your tankiness, where most hero classes won't even be able to kill you in a duel by themselves, so that's pretty nice. So Overall, Longsword just really tanky class and decent support class, but not one of my favorite classes to play. It's pretty boring, but it is kind of fun to play a super tanky class every now and again and just kind of sit there and take all the enemy attacks. Next up in A tier we have Musket, which is one of my favorite classes and one of the most versatile hero classes in the game. It's good at killing enemy ranged units from range with its Musket Bomb and Liquid Fire abilities. It can also counter enemy charges from range with its Caltrops ability to slow enemy units, as well as its Musket Bomb to stun and knock back enemy units and heroes and deal quite a bit of damage as well. You'll see a lot more of that in Blue Lock meta because those abilities, the fire ability of Liquid Fire, will be able to damage enemy units, enemy melee units, as well as the enemy ranged units. So definitely an S tier during the Blue Lock meta and expect to see a lot more of it. It's also pretty good at dueling in the right hands. If you can consistently land shots and use your scatter shot ability appropriately, it's actually a pretty good hero killing class as well. I would say in Golden Era, it's somewhat underrated. It does have a pretty high skill ceiling though, but in Blue Lock meta, it's definitely an S tier and you'll see quite a bit of it then. Next up in the A tier, we have the Pike class. I haven't played a ton of this, but from what I have seen and played of it, it just seems like a really solid dueling class. You can almost kind of stun lock enemy heroes because of how fast this class can attack, but that's kind of the only role this class can really fulfill. Its unit killing ability is decent, but the problem is you're just going to die because you're not heavy armor and you're not Nodachi, so you can't lifesteal off of those enemy units. So aside from dueling, it doesn't really fulfill much purpose. You're not going to be able to kill units, so all you can really do is duel heroes on the side. So it's really good at that, which is really the only reason I put it in A tier. But outside of that, you're not going to have much luck. So maybe bring this to deathmatch or find some duels on the side with 2 to 3 players to kill the enemy heroes, but you're definitely not going to want this in a big blob like in Territory War. And last but not least, in A tier, we have the Glaive. And Glaive, I would say, is in a little bit of a weird spot. It almost feels like some of the other weapons have been power crept a little bit by either their epic schematic sets or just in general. And Glaive kind of is just unchanged for years now on where it used to be. So in comparison to the other weapons, I would say it's a little bit worse now just because of that, but it's pretty much unchanged from when you probably played years ago. So you know what you're getting here. It's kind of just that versatile class. You have a little bit of hero killing ability with the stun and the knockdown ultimate. You have a little bit of support capability with that attack buff, and you have a decent ability to fight off horseback with that E ability as well. So just an overall pretty decent class and a lot of versatility, but it hasn't really been buffed in any way, so it seems like in comparison it's a little bit worse than it used to be, but probably right in line with what you remember. Now down to B tier, we have Nodachi, and I think Nodachi is always just going to struggle in high-level sieges and territory wars just because of the nature of how the game plays out in those situations. So Nodachi, you're really good at dueling and fighting in big blobs of enemy units when they're unarmored and not able to block your attacks, so that you can take advantage of that lifesteal and build up your stacks. But in most situations, if you're playing good players, they're just going to stun lock you. Their units are just going to kill you if you can't lifesteal off of them. So it's pretty much just not going to work out for you in high-level sieges most of the time. I will give a shout out to Blue Lock era for this hero. You actually can take advantage of the lifesteal a lot better in that because there's less melee classes that are going to be able to block you and have heavy armor. So in Blue Lock specifically, this class I would say is actually maybe an A tier, probably not an S tier, but in certain situations maybe. It's still going to suffer from the crowd control abilities used on it by good players, and in Territory Wars you're probably still going to struggle against any decent class. So other than those situations, I would just kind of avoid this class unless you're playing against lower tier players. Next up we have Spear and B tier, and you can maybe even argue that this belongs in C tier because it essentially fulfills the exact same purpose as Pike, but it's just pretty much worse in almost every way. It's worse at killing enemy units, it's worse at dueling heavy armor classes. For whatever reason, Spear seems to be pretty terrible at penetrating armor of the heavy armor classes, so if you try to play this, just your damage will be so terrible against enemy heroes these days. Literally, the only thing Spear has going for it is its play off horseback, so you have the speed up on the horse and the dismount into stun, and some players are able to do that into like a combo and one-shot enemy heroes, but I view that as a bit of a gimmick. I don't think you're going to get too far with that. It can work out in certain situations, but I would say in most high-level siege gameplay or territory wars, you're just not going to be able to pull that type of stuff off enough to where it actually makes a big difference, because outside of that, you're pretty much useless. So I would just avoid this class, and if you want that same style of gameplay, just go for Pike. It's probably going to do a lot better for you. And lastly, in B tier, we have Shortbow. And I already know before I get into this, someone's going to be like, oh, this belongs in A tier or S tier. I can see an argument for it in A tier. In certain situations, I would definitely never put this in S tier, and I'll explain why. So you can take out enemy units from range. You're definitely worse at it than a bow is because you have to pick them off one by one. You can't just AoE them down, similar to Musket as well, where Musket can AoE them down from a shorter range. That's kind of what Shortbow can do, but only pick off guys one by one. Where Shortbow really shines is in its dueling and hero killing capabilities, which I will say can be extremely strong, and it's literally the only medium to long range hero class in the game that can kill enemy heroes like that. Musket, you have to be pretty close usually to kill people, so that's why I say that. And bow, literally can't even damage heavy armored enemy heroes, so that's not even in the conversation. But with Shortbow, you can, because it's bleed damage, actually do a ton of damage to heavy armored enemy heroes if you have a really good weapon set on you. I've seen it take myself down to like a fourth of my health just with its bleed combo, so that is very strong. I just feel like in most situations, you're just not able to turn the tide of a battle with Shortbow, because most times you actually don't kill them, you just do a lot of damage and they go heal. So I still stand by my B tier recommendation. It can be useful in like a niche situation, similar to the role that a bow fulfills in a territory war city defense situation, things like that, where you can start Shortbow and then swap to like Chaindart or dual blades. That's definitely viable, I would say. But outside of that, it's, I would say, not kind of worth taking. It can be fun, but just not that great of a weapon overall, in my opinion. And last and most definitely least, we have Longbow. This one definitely hurts my soul to see still being so low on the tier list. I would love to be able to move this up, but it's just so bad. I used to be a Longbow main back in Season 2, had a ton of fun with it back then. It could kill enemy heroes no problem and take out enemy ranged units. It was amazing. But ever since they made the change to the stamina, so where you use stamina whenever you shoot, it just made it super unfun to play. And then they made another change at some point where they reduced the armor penetration of it. So now you literally can't even damage heavy armored enemy heroes. You'll do something like maybe 300 damage per hit, so it'd take you something crazy like, I don't know, 50 or 150 hits just to kill a heavy armored enemy hero, assuming they just sit there all day for you. So yeah, literally all you can do with this class is pick off enemy ranged units, which is definitely a niche that can and probably should be fulfilled by one person in a territory war defense. So you can pick off high value targets like Falconetti gunners, Imperial archers, longbows, all those types of things. But outside of that, it's literally useless. You can technically damage light armored enemy heroes, but it's still going to be pretty bad even at that. And if they get close to you, you're definitely going to die. So overall, unfortunately, this hero class is still very terrible. So that's it for the weapon tier list. If you don't remember anything else from this video, just remember these few key things. Make sure your account is transferred over from the MY.GAMES service to the Booming service before Season 20 starts so that you're ready to go. Maximize your rewards by winning 1 game per day, doing your 5 weekly bandit raids, and participating in territory war and temporary events. Be ready to go at the start of this season by unlocking the armor sets from the Fame Envoy, as well as fully maxing out your meta blue tier units such as right-hand marksmen and ball boys. To prepare for Golden Era, make sure to craft new armor and utilize the new Artificer's Forge system to go for between 20 and 25 leadership per set piece, as well as unlocking the new meta tier units and maxing them out, such as units like IPG ISG, Men-at-Arms, the new Huanwei Heavy Cav, and Wuwei Mansion Guards. Utilize the new Doctrinal Alchemy system to get the new purple Doctrines, which max out at tier 5. Utilize 8 purple Epic Wisdoms along with a Pure Wisdom to guarantee a tier 4 or tier 5. There will of course be a little bit of a learning curve coming back to the game, but you'll pick it up as you go. Just make sure to keep having fun out there, and I'll see you out in the battlefield.